In 1997, the art world was stunned by the untimely death of Roy Lichtenstein. He was called the quintessential master of pop painting by the New York Times. Some say he revolutionized the modern art world. In the early 1960s, he helped pioneer the pop art movement with his comic book style paintings and Ben-Day dots. He applied his style to landscapes, interiors, and sculpture. Take a look.
I don't think that my precise way of working has much to do with art in general and isn't really enlightening. It also doesn't really show what I'm really thinking about. It helps me be consistent in the style I'm working in. I want it to appear like a cartoon or like something made by industry. I, of course, do it myself and don't want it done by someone else and like to make the lines myself. Doing art is something that feeds back to you. It's a learning process. It would be like thinking about playing the violin and not playing it or something. You have to interact with it or you don't go anywhere with it.
Currently, there are two exhibitions of his art, one in New York and one in Miami. Joining me now to talk about the artist's life and his work, Dorothy Lichtenstein, the widow of the artist Bonnie Clearwater, the director and chief curator of the Museum of Contemporary Art in North Miami, and artist Jeff Koons. I am pleased to have each of them here. What do you think, Bonnie, his legacy is?
Oh, that he wanted to teach people how to see, and that in fact he instinctively knew that his audience was going to be in the future, that he had created this tension between the pop imagery or the figurative imagery and the abstract qualities of the painting, and he felt that the shelf life of the subject matter would eventually dissipate and that people in the future would understand that the work was about these abstract issues. So I think that we are now able to receive that legacy with the distance of time.
Jeff, legacy, impact.
Roy seemed to be able to communicate to people and to, he always made me feel as though I had possibility in this world. And I just imagine this is what he's been able to communicate to everybody that's looked at his work, that they have possibility.
An influence on you?
Tremendous. I mean, absolute.
Beyond making you think you could have, helping you understand you had possibility.
Yes, I mean, just a role model as a human being, as an individual. I mean, you know, Roy's just there in a class. You know, I could never think of, if I get nervous about even something like this evening, I would think, well, you know, Roy would handle this very calmly. And
by not showing.
No, but I think Roy would just be himself, and he would just do to his limitations. And but
was there a difference in the public man and the private man?
Not really. I mean, it was very much the same. I mean, he loved to work. He worked. He kept the same schedule every day.
What was that?
Weekdays. Oh, he would get up, have breakfast, read the paper, and then go into the studio by 10, work till about 1, break for lunch, come back, and work from 2:30 to dinner.
Yeah.
And on Saturdays and Sundays.
24/7, huh?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's really what he liked to do. And I just think he was very respectful. I mean, he was non-judgmental. So out in the world, he was basically kind to everyone.
Let me take a look at some of the things to give you a sense of what's taking place at these exhibitions. This is Brushstrokes, 4 decades, and the first slide we'll see is called Variation Number 7 from 1959. Bonnie, tell me about this.
Oh, well, people don't realize that for almost 20 years before Lichtenstein started painting the pop paintings, he was painting, and for most of that time he was painting abstractly. And this is an example of one of the abstract paintings from the late 50s. And it was very hard once he started working on the pop paintings to give up the abstraction. In fact, he worked on both styles at the same time for a while until finally he worked out the issues in the pop paintings. But already in these abstract paintings, you can see a lot of the issues that he deals with compositional later on, such as the layering of different colored planes.
Take a look at the next one, Yellow Brushstroke 2, 1965.
Well,
You're beginning to see.
Yeah, but here he's going back and reminding people that he is interested in painting and in the brushstroke. But instead of being that gestural, abstract, expressionist painting, he's very meticulously painted a what looks like a machine-made painting, reproduction. But again, the irony is that it was very meticulously painted, even though it looks like it was printed by a machine.
Next, Two Apples, 1981.
You know, I always like to remember that these are gestures. Even though this is an interpretation and creating an artificial brushstroke, this is a gesture into its own, in itself. It's not the physical gesture of the brushstroke, what it was, but an intellectual gesture, a way of seeing that Bonnie's talking about. But so the type of convention that Roy was creating was a gesture. And when I look at a brushstroke like this, it seems like the space is so thin that it's almost about the lives that people are living and maybe their gesture, the telephone call they're going to make or the birthday cake that they're going to share with somebody this evening.
Okay. Take the next one is Drowning Muse. Take a look at this from 1986.
Well, we were talking about the strength of the subject matter of the cartoons and how hard it is to get away. And one of the things I think is fascinating about these later brushstroke paintings is that he uses all these abstract marks to create an image. I'm not sure. I mean, I see the images very, very clearly.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what someone just looking at a big forest scene or a Drowning Muse, whether they would actually make this head out. But just this gesture's made a nose and eyes and...
Next one is Figures in Landscape, 1985.
Well, and this really deals with the same thing. I mean, you read a house and you read a figure, but it's clearly abstract.
Actually, he's reversed what the original pop paintings did, whereas before the pop imagery was so strong that you missed the abstraction. Here, the abstraction becomes so strong that you almost miss the image.
Next is Sunrise in 1984. Next one is Brushstroke Head 2, 1987. Sculpture. The next is Brushstroke Chair and Brushstroke Ottoman, 1986 to 88. And then finally there's Brushstroke 1996. So this was a year before he died.
Yes. Well, he had made the maquette and it was ready to go, and it was produced posthumously from the maquette.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And, I mean, but basically once he did that, it was ready to go, and he would make a trip to the foundry, and his long-term assistant would go up to the foundry and mask it off.
Okay, all those were from Roy Lichtenstein brushstrokes for decades. Next is Inside, Outside. Take a look at this. The first one is Steel with Goldfish and painting of golf balls, 1972. Bonnie?
Well, you're getting the sense of playing against the three-dimensional aspects on a two-dimensional surface, right. And obviously with the goldfish bowl, which gets repeated in the sculpture in a very interesting way. And actually it was in the sculpture that gave me the clues that he was dealing with perception, because they do some very interesting things with space. And he plays with this idea, particularly in the golf ball painting, is if you see it as a golf ball, if you see it as a real figure, you're going to see space a particular way. You see it as an inflated round form. If you just see it as a series of lines and circles, then it flattens out or even becomes concave, convex.
Right.
So he knew that you would see space differently, whether you saw it as a figure or as an abstract form. And this is very conscious on his part.
Okay, the next one is Picture and Picture, 1978.
Well, you could see in the sculpture how it became a clue as to what he was doing perceptually. I mean, this almost all of his sculptures are actually very flat. It's almost as if they were done very much like the drawings, and he wanted it to always be in the same position that he was standing, or when he made the drawing or the sculpture. It's not like if you were to walk around the sculpture, all of a sudden you would see the picture as separate from the picture, but here, but it's always going to have the same relationship, even though he's dealt with the foreshortening in a sculpture, and it looks like they're two separate elements, but when you walk around it, they're really all in the same plane.
Next slide, the next one, I guess, is brushstroke, 1982.
Right, well, you see here that he's made the brushstroke into an object, into a figurative element, and composed it with these gestures in a three-dimensional way, just like the paintings we were looking at earlier.
Sleeping Muse is next.
Well, again, here, the clue of the sculpture showing his interest in space, that at its thickest, this work, which is based on the Brancusi sculpture, is only about an inch thick. And yet, the way he uses the contour lines, he uses the references to shading, we read it as a volume, but it's completely flat.
The next is the Woman, Sunlight, Moonlight, 1996.
This is actually a two-sided work. And one side, the woman has the sunlight, and the represented by the red dots. On the other side, it's blue dots representing the moonlight. But looking at this, it's deceiving, because the area where there are the dots is actually solid, and the area that is white is actually the background, the wall behind it. And yet, when you look at it in camera, it's hard to distinguish one from the other. When you see it up close, then you realize the tricks that he played with your own perceptions.
The next then is Coup de Chapeau, self-portrait, 1996.
Otherwise known as Man Hit by the 21st Century.
Yes, there you go. And finally, there is this from Inside, Outside, Interior, Still Life, and Sculpture.
Yeah, this is one where there is the mirror to the left, and it's reflecting back an artist in a beret holding a palette, and which Dorothy just confirmed is supposed to be a self-portrait.
Yes.
Yeah, which is wonderful. But you can see that in these interiors, they're filled with contradictions. Something that's supposed to be a wall all of a sudden pops forward and is the floor, or is just a weird space hanging out there.
Did the concept of accessibility mean something to him?
Well, it did, but I mean, I'm not sure that some of his work was very accessible, but maybe he thought accessible for the wrong reasons. I mean, I think people feel comfortable when they can look at something and recognize it, whatever they think about it. I mean, it instantly makes them...
He might say, look, I want him to be able to look at it and enjoy it, but at the same time, they may not. He may have had a deeper, different meaning, intention than they saw.
Right. Well, I think he thought that the style or the subject matter was an integral part, even though once he was working on a painting, he was disregarding that. Yeah. I mean, this may be difficult to explain, but that somehow the style, that look of the cartoon, was crucial to what he was trying to do, to make it new all over again.
I hear you. Jeff, what did he change in the end?
What did Roy
about
change?
art?
I think he made a tremendous contribution. He showed people that you can do something. I think people look at art and they feel that it's so difficult to make an impact or to contribute anything. And Roy showed that, you know, if you focus on something and you concentrate, you can do something. Roy made it look so easy, and he did it time and time again. I think that he made work that looked bright, and he gave art a certain sexiness in the mid-20th century. I think, I look at his work and I think about the energy of creating something, a sense of a newness.
How many works of art in a lifetime?
Well, there are probably close to 5,000, a little under 5,000. I mean, this...
Drawings.
Yes. I mean, it contains a lot of various things.
Everything.
Yes.
5,000. Let me remind you, Roy Lichtenstein, Brushstrokes, 4 Decades, is at the Mitchell, Innes, and Nash Gallery in New York through January 12th. Those were the first series that we looked at. The second series, Roy Lichtenstein Inside Outside, is a museum at the Museum of Contemporary Art in North Miami from December 12th through February 24th. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
He had a profound influence, and most people mourn his passing in '97 is much too early, and so many things that they liked about him and his work. Thank you for joining us. See you next time.